Hello everyone, my name is FlareBlitzed here and welcome to what is my first Q&A video on my YouTube channel, which celebrates the landmark of 1,000 subscribers. Now, I know in the grand scheme of YouTube that may seem like a small number, but for me, this is a huge achievement. Thank you so much to everyone who subscribes to my channel. Thank you to everyone who's watched the video, everyone who liked the video, everyone who commented the video, whether if it's a nice comment or any form of criticism. Each of it in itself is so mind-blowing, and I wouldn't be in this step, I wouldn't be here at all if everybody who has supported me hasn't been there for me. So first and foremost, thank you very much. And now we're going to get on to the questions themselves, because I'm really looking forward to getting into this. So let's jump into it and see what we have in our let's just see what we have in our stores, have we? Why are you so handsome? Well, if I told you why I was handsome, unfortunately I would have to lock you up somewhere, because the world does not need to know the secret behind my awesome handsomeness, unfortunately. But there is a good reason why I'm this handsome, but if you would have known, that would be top secret leaked information just right there out there into the public. And unfortunately, I think I would be out of my YouTube channel, because I would believe that my handsomeness will be outranked once the secrets leak out. Just to say, you're not going to know why I'm so handsome. Just deal with it. Why are you so awesome? Also, what's a pet's peeve when it comes to RPG horror? The first reason why I'm awesome is because I have this magnificent beard. If it wasn't for this beard, I don't think I would have been to this stage, to be honest. But unfortunately for you, you're not going to know the true secret to why I'm awesome. Just like the previous question. You know that first question I just did there? If I told you the secret of why I'm awesome and why I'm handsome, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to last that long. Unfortunately. A pet's peeve is a really troublesome one. I would say that the one thing I absolutely despise when it comes to any sort of game that comes out on an RPG Maker Engine platform is riddles. Riddles. I despise riddles which have no hints, no sense in the plot line of the story of the game. Literally, sometimes a riddle or a puzzle is just put there for the sake of filling a hole within the game. It sort of divides the game between story sections and another story section. If it doesn't make sense, if there are no hints given towards a riddle or a puzzle, that's a part of the game which I really despise. And that's also sometimes why I take several days between making a video on a particular game, because of a puzzle, because of a riddle. Not because it's difficult, but also because it's annoying. So I hope that answers that question for you, dear personnel. What made you want to create a YouTube channel? Also, what was the first video game you've ever played? I know you meant to say ever, Choco, but that's absolutely fine. Okay, what made me want to create a YouTube channel in the first instance? Well, it was around a time when I first started university, and to be able to actually fill out the gaps when I wasn't doing university work, all I was spent doing was watching other YouTube channels play games like this. But at the time, actually, I didn't even know about RPG Maker horror games, or even the concept of these kind of games in themselves, even in Japan, for example. So I was looking up different Let's Plays from other YouTubers who have done it, and I kind of took an interest within it. The first game I ever watched was one called Misao. The first one I ever played was Paranoiac in my spare time, but unfortunately I didn't take a liking to Paranoiac itself because of the amount of doors within the game. I got like halfway through the game before I realised that this sort of stuff isn't for me, and I just want to move on. But then I played another game which I watched for the first time called Misao. I watched for one episode of someone's Let's Play, and then I played through the other parts of the game, and I absolutely was attached to it. And it was that kind of RPG Maker horror which I kind of like. That sort of cheesy comic, well, not comic, but comedic kind of horror that is within this small section of the community. What was the first video game I've ever played? I think it was probably Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64, and that to me was like my childhood. It was a really raging time, even though I was much smaller and without facial hair. Unfortunately, it just came with the time. But yeah, Mario Kart 64 was the first game I ever played. I would say anything that comes close to that was the original Pokemon Red and Blue. Those were awesome games as well for the Game Boy. Not like the colour ones, the original Game Boy. The one that kind of took every bit of your hand up just to hold it. Even with my hand at this size, and I've got pretty big hands, it fills up your entire hand, a Game Boy console did. Literally. But yeah, that is like the first games I've ever played in my lifetime. When did you discover that you're a gift from God? Well, on the first day God created Earth. On the second day they made people. And on the third day, somehow I came to the Earth, cryogenically frozen me, and now here I am in the 21st century, looking at all of you. That's right. I'm looking at every single one of you who's watching this video, and you better make sure that you mark this down as a period in history when the impossible became possible. If you could date any RPG horror character, who would it be? Okay, this is a bit of a dilemma, because in certain parts of the world it would be acceptable to date someone if they're 18 or over, but in other parts like the United States it would be the fact that it would be 21 or over, unless I'm getting alcohol consumption and like an appropriate age to date someone mixed up. But someone's going to have to correct me that in the comments, because I don't live in the USA, I live in the United Kingdom. That being said, oh gosh, this is a tricky one. I don't have any romantic fantasies with any characters, but gosh, I really love that, well, not love, but I really liked playing that character in Endroll, which involved them looking like a nurse. I believe it was Mirrorly they're called. If I was to date any character, it would be Mirrorly. She is not only a sweetheart, but she's incredibly caring as well. So that's why I would date her. Maybe not be RPG Maker related, unless you want it to be, but what games are you looking forward to playing? Can be games that are announced but not out yet, can be games that are releasing for sure soon, or games that are released already. This question is kind of nice because it's expanding beyond of what I'm currently used to, which is RPG Maker or horror visual novels at this point in time. If you've looked at my channel recently, the amount of Valletta videos I've put out is truly astonishing. At the point of time I'm recording this on the 30th of July, I have 16 videos out. I have nothing pre-prepared for a 17th video. I'm out all day on the 31st, so unfortunately the earliest I'm going to get another video in contrast towards Valletta will be the 1st of August. So yeah, mark that down if you're a Valletta fan. But games I'm looking forward to. But building up. Gone? Maybe. Okay, so games I'm looking forward to. From Japan, I'm looking forward to certain games like Blue Reflection, Knights of Azure 2, Bride of a New Moon, Warriors All-Stars, Dynasty Warriors 9, and any games which are made from Koei Tecmo. I like those sort of games just because of the style that they deliver stories, but also on the action as well. In my spare time, that's the kind of a game that I play. Certain games from that company I do a let's play on. You know, some with games which are quite structured. Not with Empire's games because they're just too complex for me to try and get my head around and try and configure what they actually meant to do. And in terms of RPG Maker, it's just not like a complete list, but Aria Story, Yugami, Kegel Totori, Rosary the Reaper, Academia, any games from a Pixel Horror Jam, which is already in flow, but I don't see any games uploaded so far, since I think the deadline's in October for when Pixel Horror Jam games need to be uploaded. But any games that comes from that, What other ones are there? Trying to think off the top of my head. Land, Sea, Entropy. Trying to think of others. The next build of Timeleye. Havenfall? How would you want to pronounce it? That game. I'm not going to look at my list right now of who I'm following on Tumblr or other pages, but there's a good fair few amounts. So if I've missed anybody out who's watching this video and are a developer, it's quite hard to just think of it up on your own without looking at something, but I don't want to do that right now. But that's still a concrete list, but those are some of the games which I'm looking forward to playing once there's a download of it, once there's a pre-order, once they're released, once they're downloadable. Whatever catches your drift, I'm looking forward to so many games which are coming out from the RPG Maker community. It is immense. Did any game ever make you cry like a baby? Upside down smiley face. When it comes to any games outside of RPG Maker, no, but there was one game in RPG Maker which literally put me into tears because of a connotation of where the story was being driven, and it's a game called Remember, one of the games that Tasaiki translated, and it was the part of where you're going towards the true ending of the game, and it was literally, off the top of my head, it was over a year ago now since I played this game, but literally what happened was the protagonist was trying to save one of his friends from a car crash, and something happened. It was very vague, the story, but what essentially happened is that two people were talking whilst the protagonist was there, and they were both talking about like transferring the protagonist from one home to another because their current parents, actual real parents I think they were unable to look after them anymore, and the guardian parents obviously were very happy to take them on board, I believe. But the worst thing is that protagonist doesn't realise that those two were talking about him because he suffered from amnesia, and it just hit me like this child is confused and these two were talking about him, but the worst thing that happened was that child had no idea that it was about him. And I was just looking through these lines, and I was just shedding tears at that point because I felt so sorry for the poor boy. Whenever you play a game for so long, you kind of become one with the character that you're playing as and other main characters within the game, and unfortunately my tears couldn't hold that any longer in that game. So if you want a link to where you can download that game, it shouldn't be too hard to find under Tasaiki's translated games, but if you're struggling to find it, I can put it down in the description below if you would really like me to. But that was the one game that literally shed me to tears. Not like a baby, but just emotionally. The only other game which comes close to me crying was The Crooked Man. At one point when David Hoover's mother was dying, or died actually as it were, it was just that heartbeat silence when it was heartbeat, no heartbeat. It's just a zzz noise as it was going along. So yeah, that was quite an emotional time for me when it came to one of these games. Nothing that happened in the past on my behalf, I don't think I have any memories upon that, but nothing to worry about, nothing to recall as disastrous in any way. From the game's perspective, of course it would be, but just for me looking at the games from a bird's eye view, nothing too drastic at all. What was the most difficult game to make a let's play of? Like, hard to talk about during the game due to it being too boring / too interesting, etc. I wouldn't say that any particular RPG Maker game that I've ever let's played I've actually struggled to make dialogue out, because that's kind of been my style, that I start off with kind of different theories just from how little I know about the game. So when you first go into a game, you be given a description, you're being given a title, you kind of talk about what might happen during the game, and as you soon get into the game, you kind of just talk about the game as you flow through. Well, that's what I think is from my perspective. But a difficult game, I'd like to answer this question, but A difficult game. I don't know how to answer that. I don't think any game has been particularly difficult to talk about. The only time I'm not really talking about the game is when I'm trying to get from A to B after dying so many times. So, for example, in Pocket Mirror, there's a very classic, very iconic moment in the mirror maze when you go through the maze, and I'm talking about the unpatched version when certain parts of that mirror maze had no light in it, so you was just literally relying on trial and error to try and get you through the process. And anytime which is a trial and error process when it comes to puzzles, I cut the video out just so that it doesn't have a void of me just looking at the game and no talking. There are sections within games which I don't talk in, but you don't see those parts because I cut them out. Just because in those moments I'm either trying to figure out a puzzle and then explain it when I have a chance, or it's just simply a lot of travelling around, and travelling around in places which I've already been. If there's a totally unknown area, then obviously there is something to talk about because of the mystery factor and the new factor towards it. So I hope that answers that question, but no particular game has given me a hard time to talk about. How and why did you get into making YouTube videos, specifically for computer games? Well, as I already answered the first question stated above, I'm going to ignore that one entirely about being so awesome. No, why? Otherwise I will find you. I first got into making YouTube videos from people that I already were watching at the time. I think it was, like I put in one of my previous questions, it was around Christmas time on the first year when I joined university, and it was just something to fill in the gaps at the times. I didn't realise that it was going to be this big of a habit, well, not habit, a hobby, that's the word, a hobby now. And it was only sort of a trial and error thing when it came to like the very first games I tried to play, such as like For Witch's House, Me Sail Mad Father, Crooked Man, Sandman, and I was just trying to develop my own style. I was going through the pace of doing videos, because I think the most important thing that you need to do when having a channel is having something which is unique to only yourself. Because if you don't have a unique factor within your channel, then it's just the point where you're not going to get a person returned to you, because there's not that connection which you've made to that person in the first instance by simply watching someone. It could be something you did that was funny in a nice way, because some channels cater towards making funny game videos. Other channels make it so like they're accomplishment achievement hunters. Other ones do it through like walkthroughs, like I do. I kind of do mine through walkthroughs, but I do like to add like 1 or 2 times when there's a bit of humor, just to make the process not completely robotic. And specifically for computer games, I already brought up with video games since I was a very young age, so I kind of have like a very good idea of how a game should work, what shouldn't be within a game, like different bugs, grammar errors which are easily ironed out if you kind of get a screenshot of the moment when you spot the grammar error or the spelling error, because those are very easy to rectify. Programming errors, I would say, is a bit more of a complex task, depending on how you want to say it, because some people get really annoyed when you say programming, because it's not programming, it's scripting. But specifically for computer games, just because I was already comfortable with it. In fact, if it wasn't for computer games, let's imagine if we just entered a hypothetical universe where actually there was no such thing as a computer game. We're just left with anime, manga, DVDs, films, music, all kinds of entertainment. But one kind of entertainment that doesn't exist because it is not within the knowledge of humanity are video games. I don't think I'll ever make a YouTube channel, because there's nothing that kind of gives me that driving force to keep making videos on. I don't seek the joy of some people when they make videos out of, let's say, pranking, for example, because that's kind of an area of life which is just it's just so unnecessary. I don't see how a person can make a living out of pranking other people. And it's always the most stupid, insane stuff as well. And it's kind of like that wart in the YouTube community where there's just about gigantic wart, and that wart are pranking videos, that wart are random clickbait videos that somehow gets millions of views, but the clickbait title, the thumbnail, the topic of the thumbnail or the title has no relevance to the video itself. It's just there just to hoard more views. But anyways, I kind of got off a tangent there, and I apologise about that. Final question. Hi Flare, congratulations on 1,000 subscribers. I have a few questions for you. First of all, are you British? Secondly, what are some of your favourite / least favourite games that you've played on your channel and or favourite video games? Lastly, what are your favourite least favourite things about RPG horrors in the community, and what got you interested in it and making videos? Thank you for your time. Have a nice day. Okay, from comparing to the other questions, I can answer the first question and the question about favourite, least favourite things about games I've played on my channel and about RPG horrors in the community. So I'm just going to go through them just from order. So first of all, thank you very much. That's really heartwarming to see about the thankful message you wrote about 1,000 subscribers. I was very surprised when I actually hit it after I recorded a video on the letter, and I think that's the sole reason why I just went up from 900 or so subscribers to, I forgot the last time I channeled, but I think it was like about 1,040 or something subscribers. First of all, are you British? Absolutely. I was born in the United Kingdom. I live in the United Kingdom. I hope that settles that question. But anyways, the other two questions I will answer is, what are some of your favourite games that you let's played, least favourite games I've played, and then the other question itself. So let's just do that one first. Some of my favourite games, the games I don't like to just point out in the dark as to like which ones are my favourites and which ones are my least favourites, because for me that would put developers in both advantageous and disadvantageous positions, because I don't want to make out for the game by the efforts that the developers put in, because I believe that in the core of every RPG Maker game that the developer put their soul into making the game. So I don't want to answer it in terms of the effort that the developers put into the game, but I just want to talk about it from a personal level based off the stories and the puzzles that the game presented for the player. So favourite ones, I would say, I'm just going to pick one video game off the top of my head, and it's not like the peak of my favourites. I'm just going to say it's one of my favourites. And one of my favourites, which I think goes extremely underrated in this community, is Paranormal Syndrome. And I would say that this is probably the best game that Tsuki translated. Although I think recently, looking at Tsuki's translation pages, that there's been no updated games. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. But I think that Paranormal Syndrome gets slept on because paranormal is a very specific kind of horror. It gets slept on because it's kind of like a figment that's not actually supposed to be in reality. Like, and I also like the struggle, the trial and error that Hamino Makuta goes through just to get to the other side of the game and come out from a very nervous person to this very strong-willed person who is literally ready to sacrifice themselves for the greater good in order for these paranormal entities to not go about and do what they want to do and continue countless murders. Least favourite, I've got two in mind, and I think some people know this already. One of them is Candle, and that's capital C, lower A, and capitals NDLE. And then the other one I would say is Forest of Animals, if you can call that an RPG Maker horror in itself, but it is. But that's how I was supposed to title it, because that's how the tags work, unfortunately. So, sorry. Candle's mechanics of traversing throughout the game is beyond annoying, because you go through the game and the most annoying thing about it is you need two different items in order to survive. You need the ink to be able to save a game, and you need the candles to be able to traverse through a game without some unknown monster killing you in case your candle runs out. The ink is tolerable, but the candles are horrifically unbearable. If you've ever played Candle for yourself, if you've ever watched any of my videos on my YouTube channel, you would know that Candle is one of those games which it takes a significant amount of patience to go through, and it's also a game which has so much RNG as to whether you actually get candles and or ink, or just candles, or just inks, or nothing at all. So my best bet if you're going to try and go through the game new is to save at a point where you know that candle and ink are likely to spawn, save before it, and if nothing pops up, close down the game, restart the game. RNG will take its effect again. As long as you don't interact with them in the first place, you're going to get a chance where there could be something. Candles are more of a necessity than ink, I would believe, because if you know what things do within that game, then you can just save and then process throughout the game, and if anything bad crops up, you can just revert back and you haven't used many candles and inks just simply because you didn't save between the last time and then there. But Candle is not a game I would recommend to play. Okay, lastly, least favorite things about the community. I'm gonna discard RPG horrors because we've already kind of encroached on that question from just now. But the community in itself, I'm going to start with the least favourite thing and then work my way up towards the favourite thing, because I kind of feel like that ends us on a good note rather than a bad one. The least favourite thing one thing I do not like about the community in itself is, and this kind of goes across all of Tumblr as well, is hate anonymous. If you've ever been a victim of hate in itself, it kind of makes the opposition much more of a coward if they decide to be anonymous about their hate, because literally anybody can do it. Anybody can click their be anonymous or whatever that title is called, that option is called. I don't do it myself. I've only ever sent one or two anonymous questions, but that was for like an entire basis of like how the story goes, blah 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 blah. But nothing I've ever submitted to anybody had any inclusion of hate. I may have once put out a kind of constructive criticism to a particular team once about something, but there was no hate needed in that. And for me, hate is not necessary. Hate is not needed, and it's not necessary. But anonymous hate is something I see far too often in RPG Maker Horror, RPG Maker community, any kind of community on Tumblr. It's vile, and it puts people off from making games because there's this kind of standard which people put a pre-quota on, just so that when a game comes out, if it doesn't meet their quota, they just slander hate on the developers. It probably doesn't go exactly like that process, but I think it's somewhere similar along that lines. It's vile within the community, and it's unnecessary vile that cannot be avoided if people have the half-heartedness to actually think about that and not do it. I say half-heartedness because if you have a full heart about it, it won't even cross your mind. If you're professional about it, you wouldn't just go onto somebody and then just type spamming hate at them. I would say that is probably my least favourite thing about the RPG Maker Horror community, about communities as general, especially on Tumblr, as you have the option to be anonymous. If I were to get rid of anything in the world, anything, my most hated thing about anything in life would be the option to be anonymous. Why is that? Because we were all born from the same place. that doesn't mean that you have to hide your identity like some sort of coward. I'm not saying that everybody who does hide their identity are cowards, because some people do it in a means that they don't want to like reveal their names out to the public. They don't want to have their profile just shown on their Facebook page without being at their actual friends in real life for them to be acknowledged. I respect that. The anonymous type I'm looking at are the ones who perpetuate hate, who perpetuate chaos throughout the internet. And try doing that in real life. If you ever sent anonymous hate to someone, just hear me out on this. Try doing that in real life. Try going up to someone saying all that stuff that you've messaged them on Tumblr, clicking on anonymous, thinking that you could be anybody. Just try doing that to them in their faces. I guarantee that A, you will not have the balls to say it, and B, you would think about the repercussions that will come out of it. Because for whatever reason it is, and I'm just going to go through this on basis of one that I've seen on the Doctrine of Perseverance page, but it's deleted now, so you don't have to worry about seeing it. But one of them was about like, oh, why isn't the game come out yet, or blah 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 blah. And it's like, developers are not machines. We have life of our own as well as you do. Our lives are not dedicated to 100% effort on videos, 100% effort on art, 100% effort on RPG Maker, 100% on this, that. We have family, we have responsibilities, we have necessities that we have to look at first before even considering making a Let's Play video, a game, a this, a that, a b, however you want to call it. There are things in life which comes first before doing something which is necessarily a hobby. And that's what this is, it's a hobby. You sit down, you spend a couple of hours doing something, and that in itself, that's your enjoyment time. Sorry. And whether you call your job a hobby, or you just call it a job just to put food on your table, that's irrelevant right now. But the most important thing is that these are things which people do within their spare time. Not everyone has the spare time that you want them to have, just so that it fulfills your quota of having the game out as soon as possible. I prefer if a game takes as much time as it is needed to be developed, so that A, the developers are happy with their game progression, and B, the quality of the game reflects on what they want their game to be. So, sorry for anything like that, but yeah, the favourite thing I like about this community is kind of like, you're independent in one way, but at the same time you all support each other. You have your projects of your own, but at the same time you support other projects. It kind of goes around in a cycle. I support this artist, that artist supports this game, that developer supports this game. It's a circle. And that circle is filled with lovely, selfless people who are willing to not only make their own games come true, make their dreams come true, sorry, but also help others make their dreams come true. And it's a lack of in the community, but it's definitely there, and that's what I love about it. Reblogging someone, saying something nice to someone, and even if you see if it's easy or if it's something that's too simple to do, a nice message. And anytime you see a nice message, even though it seems so small to you because you're not affected by the message, but to that person, to that artist, that could mean their day for them. And sorry, I just had a tear, I believe, but that is literally, that could be their day for them, because they may have had a hard day at work, they may have had a hard time with family, and all they want to do is sometimes go to bed and then wake up tomorrow and think about the next day. A nice message sometimes is quite possibly the most heartening thing that they could see in all of their day. And something small like that can uplift someone so much. And I've never been in a position where I feel like I need to have nice messages in order to continue with my games, but it definitely uproots me whenever I do get one. Like this question, for example, is an example of that. Yeah. So I hope you all enjoyed this little Q&A. I think I spanned it on for a long amount of time, but I was supposed to be more condensed and precise, but I kind of went off topic on some matters there. But I hope you've all enjoyed this. I don't know when I'm going to do another one, probably another landmark, let's say 2,000 or 5,000 subscribers. Most definitely 10,000 subscribers, but we've got to get there first. It took over 2 years to get to this stage, playing quite a variety of different games, from hack and slash style games to what I basically do 99% of the time, which is RPG Maker horror games, and possibly other horror visual novels if they are like Valletta. Well, not like Valletta, but the same kind of reflectiveness in their quality. But also, it's also nice to go into a game which has a completely different element to it. Can still be horror, can still be visual novel. It just has a different story to it. Just has different backlashes to you. So thank you very much for watching, guys. If you made it far to this video, just pat yourselves on the back and thank you so much for making it to this point. If you are new here, please subscribe, please like the video, please comment down on anything that you want to say below, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.